from the ground up. I built it with the intent of bringing my town up. Y'all getting all wound up. Y'all getting up. Telling me, yeah, it's impossible. I'm looking at it like, nah, that's an obstacle, bro. I said that goal.
Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 11 of the Kevin Widop Show. My guest this week is John Lee Dumas, the founder and host of Entrepreneur on Fire, an award-winning podcast on iTunes, which inspires entrepreneurs 7 days a week. The Entrepreneur on Fire podcast focuses on the journey of each guest from their worst entrepreneurial moment to their aha moment. Value bombs are dropped in every episode by John, who I connected with out in Puerto Rico. John's published over 1,800 interviews with entrepreneurs like Tony Robbins, Seth Godin, Gary Vee, Barbara Corcoran, and Tim Ferriss, plus thousands more. You can check out his site, entrepreneuronfire.com. But for now, please delve into this 15-minute interview with John Lee Dumas, who talks about his journey from conceptualization of the podcast to creating a revenue stream totaling more than $100,000 a month, sometimes up to $200,000. Check it out. Entrepreneur on Fire is one of the go-to resources on the internet for entrepreneurial wisdom. You've recorded nearly 2,000 podcasts, John. Did you start off with a bona fide plan or manifesto?
No, I really didn't. I just knew that I wanted to speak to interesting, successful entrepreneurs that, had journeys, that had ups, that had downs. And I just kind of wanted to, number one, ask them questions that I was curious about and see where the conversation led. And that was pretty much the extent of it.
Okay. And where did the drive come from? I was doing a bit of research into your backgrounds, and I understood that perhaps you were a little bit frustrated or discontented with your previous work, and you sort of yearned for a higher calling, a more purpose-centric career. What was your why in terms of driving the start of Entrepreneur on Fire?
My why was the ripple effect, Kevin. I realized that my show, if I brought the right guests on and I had the guests share their inspirational stories and the knowledge that they've gained and their wins and their losses, that they would inspire other people to go off and do really cool, inspiring things. And that's the kind of ripple effect that I wanted to effectuate with my show. That's what I really wanted to bring to the table, was a show that could stand for more than just a show itself, but that could maybe inspire one person that would then go off and inspire a whole host of other people, and then so on and so forth. So that third degree of separation was what really fired me up.
Fantastic. And how did you create that pipeline of interviewees? Was that through your network initially? Was it via LinkedIn? Were you cold calling people?
Honestly, it was just hard work. I went to places like Social Media Marketing World's website and just saw their list of 150 speakers, and said, if these people are willing to travel, to go speak for 45 minutes on a stage somewhere, they're probably willing to stay at home and maybe, in their PJs, jump on a microphone and have a 25-minute chat with me. And so I just started hustling. I just started emailing successful entrepreneurs, speakers at conferences, and just saying, I love the topic that you're presenting on at so-and-so conference, and I'd love to bring you on my show and talk for 25 minutes about that area of expertise. And, frankly, it worked. And not everybody said yes by a long shot, but enough people said yes for me to get a nice lineup going on. And then down the road, what happens? I was able to kind of get to that tipping point where then people were actually coming to me and saying, hey, John, I've heard so-and-so and so-and-so on the show, and I'd like to be on as well. And then now, fast forward to today, 5 years later, we're getting over 300 inbound requests every single month for people looking to be on Entrepreneur on Fire.
Wow. That's an incredible story of growth, which, I'm sure you can empathize with a lot of entrepreneurs who are at the start of that journey now, and who look at your show and think, podcasting, audio interviews, how can I make money out of a podcast? Was Was that conundrum, did you have a monetization strategy? I think my question is from day one.
No, absolutely not. I did not know how I was going to monetize. And, even though I had some ideas on how I would like to, I didn't know what was going to work and I didn't know what wasn't going to work. So my attitude was this: why not just deliver free, valuable, and consistent content in the form of this podcast? Let me grow an audience first. Let me just focus on growing an audience by serving that audience this free, valuable, and consistent content. And then, and only then, once I have an audience, I'll go to them and I'll say, hey, what are you struggling with? And that will then allow me to listen to their pain points, their obstacles, their challenges, their struggles, and then create the solution for them in the form of a product or a service or a community. So I knew it was going to be a long haul and a long process, but I was willing to be patient.
And I think that's the real challenge at the moment that I'm hearing is the patience game. Are people willing to, frankly, at the start, it probably will be a lot of time, energy, and money on the entrepreneur side to actually grow that audience, and not everybody has the mental muscle to do that. What advice would you give to people who perhaps really want to emulate what you're doing but are a little bit afraid of leaving the day job?
Have the long game in mind. Realize that this is a marathon, this is not a sprint, and just kind of go into it with that mentality and just recognize that, hey, like, I know that I want to make $1 million overnight. I know that everybody does, but guess what? Nobody does, because that's not how it happens. You have to dedicate yourself to the time, to the grind, to the efforts, to the energy of delivering that free, valuable, and consistent content, growing that audience at the right pace, and then serving that audience a solution to their problems when the time is right. So be in it for the marathon, not for the sprint, my friends, because the sprint is a quick way to burn out.
Wow, well, a great lesson, and to link back to one of the questions which I've penned here, which talks about Gary Vaynerchuk's quote that audio is the medium of the moments. This ironically was supposed to be a video interview. It's now become audio. Video can be arguably a little bit more cumbersome than audio. Was there any reason why you chose audio, number one? Number two, if you were advising anybody to get in on the interviews with thought leaders game, would you countenance audio over video?
So it's an interesting question. I think it has to be kind of more personal on what are your goals. For me to do a daily show that was going to be a video-based show, that would have been asking a lot, because video shows are just so much more difficult to edit. They're so much bigger size-wise. There's just a lot more involved. The lighting, the et ceteras, like there just is a lot. With an audio-only show, it's just much more lower bandwidth. And it's, the shows are much easier to do. You can just kind of kick back. You don't always have to kind of be on, nodding at the screen. Like you can just kind of have a little more relaxed attitude. And again, this is for a daily show. But for somebody that's going to be doing a couple days a week or a weekly show, I think video is a great opportunity, because now you can repurpose those interviews on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, and really just continue to repurpose that content and expand and grow your audience in that way as well. So, I'm able to repurpose my content, my shows on places like Facebook and in YouTube, but people don't go to YouTube to listen to a show. Like they're there for videos. So that's something that I would definitely think about, is like, what's your overall goals? What do you want to bring to this world? What do you want to bring to your business? And I think videos can be a great way to do that if you want that kind of more well-rounded brands.
Great. Well, thanks very much for elaborating on that, John. Webinars was one of the reasons why I initially got in touch with you. I gather that you've got a podcasting online course called Podcasters Paradise, which you've used webinars to market and sell, and you publish your earnings with this air of transparency on a monthly basis, over $150,000 on some months. Has webinars been the secret sort of tool to your secret sauce in terms of monetization of the podcast?
Absolutely. A phrase that I live by is sales are made on live webinars. And I believe that because I've seen it firsthand for over 5 years now. If you have a product or a service or a community or anything, and you actually want to make legitimate sales on that thing, it's going to happen on a live webinar. Like we can try to automate things and have a recorded webinar or a sales page or fill in the blank. And it's going to make sales, but only a fraction of what it would be if you actually do live webinars. So I tested it all. I've tried it all. And yes, it's a pain in the butt to do a live webinar every other week, which is what we do. And actually, I'm doing a live webinar every other week for Podcasters Paradise. I'm doing a live webinar once a month for podcast websites. I'm doing a live webinar once a month for my community. So there's a lot of live webinars that I'm doing, but I just know that that's where you win. So although in a perfect world, that wouldn't be the case, if you want to win and financially be as successful as you can be, it's going to be because you're doing live webinars.
Fantastic. And when was the key sort of tipping point, John, as we're coming into the last couple of minutes? There must have been some really challenging days for you over the past 5 years when you thought, is it worth it? Or did you always have that kind of longevity muscle, sort of strengthening of that longevity muscle?
I think I always did have that longevity mindset and muscle. One thing that's really helped me continue this process is that I've continued to refine my processes. I've continued to improve and refine my automation and my systems. And that's been really critical because frankly, doing a daily show is tough. But now that I have the process in place where I'm able to do my month's worth of daily interviews in 2 days, it makes it a lot more manageable. So now I do 15 interviews on the first Monday and 15 interviews on the first Tuesday of every month. And that allows me to win. And so that's been really helpful in a lot of ways and something that I highly recommend people always working towards in their businesses. How can I batch process? How can I set up better systems, better automations? How can I have my team running in a more fluid manner? That's how you're going to be in it for the long run.
Fantastic. And final question, because I think we're into the last minute. Who's been the biggest influence on your business, number one, and then on your life?
Biggest influence on my business would probably have to be Lewis Howes. He was my second ever mentor, and he really has kind of created the business and life that I was looking to create that allowed you to have a very financially secure business while at the same time a location independent life. And I love how he's been able to pursue other passions besides just his business and continue to iterate and meet cool people and do what he does. And it's just been really inspiring all around. So he's been somebody that's had a big influence, I would say on both my business and my life. So he would kind of be that 2-for-1 person that I'm honored to be able to call a friend. And that friendship was created when I invested heavily in myself and had him as my one-on-one mentor.
Fantastic. And can I throw in one final question there, John?
Yes.
What are you grateful for today?
Today I'm grateful for the fact that I get to walk outside in about 20 minutes and go on an epic hike here in Puerto Rico, take in the sun and the birds and listen to a nice podcast and just enjoy life.
Wow, fantastic. Well, next time we get the video up, hopefully I'll be able to see that. But thanks so much for dropping the value bombs you do on a daily basis and for your time too from Puerto Rico today. I look forward to connecting with you again and sharing this with my audience.
You're welcome, brother. Take care.
Thank you very much to John Lee Dumas for coming on the show. I'm sure you'll agree that was an incredible interview with lots of valuable insight about how to turn your passion, whether that be in podcasting or whatever entrepreneurial journey, into a revenue stream, but specifically on how to turn a podcast into a life that you love. Coming up on the show, episode 12, is an interview with Leon Rose, international salsa dancer who's turned his passion for salsa dancing into an international career. He talks about how he did that. Episode 13 is with Maggie O'Grady, who is an independent teacher of transcendental meditation. She talks about the grief of losing her husband and how she harnessed transcendental meditation to overcome that grief. Many, many more guests coming up who talk about their entrepreneurial journeys. Please go to the YouTube channel, The Kevin Widdop Show. Subscribe to that channel. More and more videos, more content coming up on that platform. Look forward to uploading more content. This will be available on SoundCloud. All the best. Bye bye.
We just win every day.